This one's dented. Hey y'all, Victoria from amodernhomestead.com here, and today we are talking about the difference between home canned vegetables and canned vegetables from the store. So what is the difference really? Well, a couple of things. Shelf life can be part of it, nutritional value is another part, and then cost. So what is the real difference between these two? So we grew these green beans, we picked them and we canned them ourselves. These we got from the grocery store for about $1.70 a can. They're organic and we did get them on sale, so they're kind of expensive normally. So $1.70-ish per can. These only cost us the cost of the mason jar, which is of course reusable. So we might have to replace the canning lid. Well, we do replace the canning lid every year, but the ring and the jar are reusable. And if you got the Tatler or one of the other brands, I can't remember the name, reusable lids, you wouldn't even have to buy lids again. So cost is one thing. This jar costs us, let me think, this jar costs less than $1, and we can reuse it. So this has been used probably now 10 or 15 times. We've been canning for a really long time. In bulk, more so in the last probably 15 years. So this jar is probably 10 to 15 years old, and we've gotten a lot of use out of it. So 10 cents maybe per jar of green beans here. We planted one packet of green beans and it yielded thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of green beans that we canned. So even the cost of growing the green beans, because we use the back to Eden gardening method, we don't have to water, we just set up the beds, plant the seeds, and call it good. So it's a very cheap way to do gardening. And so the green beans themselves are very cheap, and the jar can be used over and over again. And then of course you have these, which is not reusable and may have a liner that has BPA or some other alternative. Even if it isn't BPA, it may have something in it that isn't really great. So there's the cost, the nutrition value. I know exactly what was put on these green beans. I know exactly their nutritional content. I know that our soil is amazingly high in nutrients. It's very, very healthy soil. I'm not sure about the nutrient value of this can. Of course, a green bean can look like a green bean, but not have the nutritional value. If you know anything about our food supply right now, monocultures and so on and so forth, the food that we get may look nutrient rich, but it is far less nutrient rich than the same foods 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago. So these I know are really nutrient rich. So we've got cost and nutrition value, but what about shelf life? It may surprise you to find out that the shelf life of these is really similar. This can, as long as it is not dented or rusted or bulging in any way, is good forever. There is an expiration date on the top of it, but even the USDA says that as long as a can is visually fine, the contents of it are good forever. Same thing here. Stored in a cool, dark place, these will be good forever as long as the seal is intact. And it may lose nutrient value. Either one of these may lose nutrient value over time, but they don't go bad. So really, there's not a ton of difference between these two things as far as shelf life, but there is probably a big difference between cost and nutrition between the two. So there you go. My recommendation is always going to be to can your own food. Even if you go to the farmer's market and you get fresh green beans from your area, where you know the farmer, where you know what they're putting on their fields, where you know their soil practices and all of those kind of things, if you're looking for nutrient rich food. If you just want to have food on the shelf, that's totally fine. And a lot of people don't really care specifically about the nutrient density of their food, and that's fine. You're used to eating from the store, it's the nutrient richness that you're used to, that's fine. But if you want to go above and beyond and you want to get that nutrient dense, real food experience, and you want to have it on the shelf and make it shelf stable, then canning your own food is a really, really, really good thing to do. So a quart, this is not a quart, a pint holds about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of food, depending on the type of food that it is. If it's green beans or peas or corn that you can pack really, really densely, it'll probably be a lot more food in here than it would be, say, like if it was a potato that had the opportunity to have a lot more spaces in it because you couldn't pack it as densely, or apples or cherries or something like that, versus a jam that would fill all of the crevices. So if you're planning on a pint of food, plan at least 1 pound possibly 1.5 pounds per pint, and you're gonna do 2 to 2.5 pounds per quart. So as you're planning what you're doing for your family, how much you need to order, how many jars you need, that's a good rule of thumb. And this is of course 2 cups of food, so plan accordingly for that. If you had a cup of vegetables, it's 2 servings. If you had half a cup, it's 4 for a pint. So just keep that in mind as you're planning out your garden, as you're planning out your orders, as you're planning out your pantry, so that you can make sure that you have enough food on hand for the given time that you want to have. I know that mason jars are a really expensive cost up front, but it's really, really worth it in the long run, because like I said, this jar is now what, 10 cents, maybe 7 cents, depending on how many years I've had it, and it just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper over time, so that, you know, essentially, you know, if I just wrote it off the first year, then after that it's free. But if I want to do depreciation, then even still, it's really, really cheap. So definitely worth it to can your own food. Check out my pressure canning potatoes video. I'm going to be putting out a lot more canning videos, so be sure to check those out. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do this. I know that pressure canning can be really intimidating. You can see my pressure canner there. I just finished canning 70 pounds of potatoes, and I'm getting ready to do a bunch of carrots next. I know that it can be intimidating, but it really doesn't have to. As long as you know what to check before you start a session of pressure canning to make sure that your pressure canner is in order, it really is safe. And I walk you through all of that in my potato canning video, so be sure to check that out if you've never pressure canned before, or if you're scared of it and having a hard time with it. So for pressure canning, that's gonna be vegetables, soups, broth, and meats. So that's what you're gonna do for the pressure canner. Everything else can be canned generally in a water bath canner, which is just a pot of boiling water, super simple. And I have a couple of videos coming out for that soon too. So that's it. That's the difference between these two things. It's not crazy. Here's one that has a dent in it. I don't know if you can see. That one we will probably give to the chickens instead of eating it ourselves. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope we helped you to understand exactly how shelf stable your pantry goods are, and that you shouldn't just throw them away because the expiration date is past, especially on these canned goods. The expiration date on this is 2024, but as long as the can is good, even the USDA says this is good forever. So don't throw it away just because the expiration date is passed. Please like this video if you get a chance. Give a comment below if you liked this video, if you learned anything. Share it with your friends, and please, of course, subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys being here. I can't wait to put out the next video. See you next time.